Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, all depends upon where you're tuning in from. Welcome everyone to Apps Events Googley Women. I'm super excited today. I had 3 women that I wanted to invite to join me for a couple of hours today, and they all said yes. So I'm super excited. My name is Lisa Thumann, and I'm the U.S. Director for Apps Events, and I'll introduce our guest speakers in just a few moments. I want to give a special shout out to Acer. Acer sponsors Apps Events virtual summit, so thanks so much. You can tweet them at Acer_education, and they sponsor all of our virtual summits for Apps Events. We're going to have a great 2 hours together. Feel free to go to gsummit.link/Acer and fill out the form there to win a free seat in a ticketed summit or even a boot camp. And we've got some great boot camps coming up, level 1, level 2, all the levels. And we're going to be talking about all of that at the end of our time together today. gsummit.link/Acer. So thanks again to Acer for sponsoring. I have 3 wonderful women with me today. I have Kimberley Clark, Natalia, oh my gosh, Natalia Hernandez, and then MaryEllen West. And I'm going to leave it to them actually to introduce themselves. Our question for the panel this morning is going to be, what is your Google story? Now, before we talk about what is our Google story, I want to invite you to use the hashtag GooglePD and Apps Events and send out tweets. We are monitoring the chat and live for YouTube, and I'm super excited to see Peggy George in the chat. And actually, when it's my turn to talk, I'll actually talk a little bit about Classroom 2.0 Live and how that got me started speaking. So thanks, Peggy, for joining us. All right, my Googly women. Actually, let's just have an informal good morning with everyone, and then we'll go into our specific stories. Does that sound good, ladies?
Yes.
All right. So good morning. Welcome.
Good morning. Good morning.
Natalia, do you want to tell us where you're talking to us from?
Me? Yes, of course. I am coming live from outside of Albany, New York.
Awesome. So you're about 2.5 hours from me in Scotch Plains, New Jersey, and I've had the pleasure of working with Natalia many times through her district, hosting a summit there in the past, and then having Natalia work with me as a consultant for many years. MaryEllen, do you want to tell us where you're from?
Absolutely. I'm joining live from outside of Atlanta, Georgia.
Wonderful. And MaryEllen, also, we've gotten to work at many events together and as consultants and everything. Thank you for joining us this morning. And Kim, where are you talking to us from?
Hi, everybody. I am from right outside of Dallas, Texas, which it is hot here today. And 2 weeks ago, it was an ice storm. So, yeah.
That was crazy, the weather in Texas. It was funny. Did you guys even own snow shovels?
Absolutely not. But actually, my neighbor, I think he came from somewhere up north because every day he was outside shoveling his driveway. And we were like, how do you do that? And he had like an entire thing going on, like back and forth and back and forth. And we didn't even know how to do that. So we didn't do that.
Yeah, we have a system here in New Jersey, and my fiance and I, we were out there every couple of hours because there was about 26 inches of snow or something like that the one day, and you can't leave it all for the end. You gotta go out there every few hours. But what a great workout, right?
It is a great workout. You end up sweating, I do that all the time too in my driveway here. Well, we're used to that here in New York. So.
Oh, right.
No. I would know nothing about that in Atlanta, but we do go through all 4 seasons in one day this time of year in Atlanta. So
that's awesome. Hotlanta, right, MaryEllen? Well, who would like to start with their Googly story, their origin story?
I don't mind starting.
Oh, awesome, Natalia. Thank you.
Yeah. So my story goes back to when I was in English as a second language teacher back in North Carolina. And I I have to be honest, I was super scared of the computer that was in that room when I started teaching. And I was like, I'm not using that. So I was doing my own thing. And then one day I said, let me just try it out. And I did. And I found great things that I could use with my students. And they started becoming very engaged, and they wanted to record their voices and practice their reading. And so one thing led to another. And I was like, I think this is a great tool for my students. So that's how I started my journey with educational technology. My passion for it really was born because of the interest my students had, and I learned with them. And so after that, I came to New York, and my very first task for the district that I was working for was, we're going Google. And I was like, oh, perfect. So I started becoming, more acquainted with Google tools myself, and I ran into some professional development. And I think that's how I met you, Lisa. And I said, I want to become a certified educator. So I took one of Lisa's boot camps, and I was like, oh, I love her. I want to be like that. I want to know the things she knows. And it was so easy to make connections between what I was doing in the course when Lisa was teaching me, and also making a connection of that with the things that I was doing in my classroom. And I was like, it was such an easy connection. I could see myself doing that so easily in the classroom with my students. And so that really got me hooked into that. And so from that, I became certified educator level 1, then level 2. And then as I started doing more and more things in my school district, teachers were like, well, how are you doing that? Can you show me that? And so I did. And so we were doing informal sessions, and then it dawned on me, like, maybe I should get a certification for being a trainer, since I'm already doing that. So I went ahead and did the Google certified trainer as well. It was fantastic. I learned a lot too. And then I started, teaching teachers how to use the Google tools in a way that would be efficient for them and that would bring some academic advancement for their students. And then after that, I thought, you know what? I feel like I want to go back to this certification bug and get my innovator badge. And so I did. I found there was a lack of offerings for English language learners in the area of STEM. And so my project was essentially that, working with the school district to offer opportunities for English language learners, because, the myth is, well, they don't understand the language. And the thing is, they don't understand your language, but they are very proficient in another language that you're not proficient on, So they are mathematical. They are, they have all these skills in a different language, but they can still do STEM. And so with that program and with the support from the Google community, for the innovator community, I was able to launch my program in my school district, and kids loved it. They were engaged. They were wanting to come to school. Their academic progress was going through the roof. Kids were being more, like the kids that were not talking in English, that their speaking skills were not quite there yet. They started, talking more. So the advancement in the 4 areas that we actually look in for ELLs, speaking, reading, listening, and writing, were really progressing really, really well. So that's it. That's my story. And then I became the coordinator for instructional technology at that district. So there you go.
Yeah, and you brought summits to your district and really spread the Googley story,
yes.
Getting so many of your colleagues to use the tools and everything.
Yes.
Yeah, Natalia, that's awesome. And I've always followed you because of the ELL connection. And you were one of the first people that I really saw using the tools for ELL students and tweeting about it. And, you know, like, yeah, just wonderful. Yeah, absolutely. Who'd like to go next? All right.
I'll jump in.
All right, MaryEllen, that's awesome. Thanks.
My journey started, I guess, around close to 10 years ago. I was in the classroom and, you know, checking out different tools that I could use. I taught high school English. And, you know, remember clickers for formative assessment? That was like my big thing. You know, I got a Promethean board in my room and asked for clickers. And then a principal actually asked me to become a local school coordinator or coach for other teachers. And I kind of laughed at first because I felt like I wasn't proficient enough in technology, instructional technology, to do that at all. And, you know, but he really encouraged me. And so I did. And once I moved into that position so that I wasn't in the classroom all the time, I had the opportunity to go to events and get further training. And so I went to a Google Summit and walked in the first day, you know, opening session, and I went, that's what I want to do. This is what I want to do. I want to inspire other educators. Like, oh my gosh. And so from there, I started, you know, presenting immediately after that first summit that I went to, and actually had been presenting for a while before I decided to look into the certifications. I'm one of those, like, I don't test really well. It makes me nervous. But finally, I was like, all right, I've got to get this done. And so I took level 1 and level 2 in the same day and applied for Innovator right after that, and set up a domain for my school in the same couple of months that I did all of that. So learned how to be a super administrator and all of the other things kind of in a really short period of time. Because I really wanted to inspire that innovation for all of the teachers I was working with. And more than anything, what I found with Google Tools was the power to individualize learning for students. I'm a huge proponent of differentiation and meeting the needs of all of our students. And I'm also a huge proponent of taking risks. So when I applied for the Innovator program, it was crazy, but my project was to code, which I had never done at all. And but I said, even in my application video, I want to model for students that we have to take risks. And so, you know, along with lots of people who ended up helping me with that project, including my brother, which is the funniest part of the whole story, I created an add-on to automate differentiation. And that was really kind of the biggest launching, I guess, for me. And so then over time, you know, I've transitioned in different positions, and I'm, you know, at the district level now, and, you know, we shut down school domains and created the district domain, and, you know, we have over 100,000 Chromebooks now and crazy insane amounts of users. And I get to work every day with local school coaches on how they can then coach their teachers. And so we have all these people who are certified now, all these people who are doing amazing things. And it's just that the power for the tools and the power to differentiate and to empower and inspire innovation and change. It's just been remarkable. But yeah, it all kind of went back to the first summit that I attended and going, that's what I want to do right there.
I remember hearing all about your Innovator project because you were working with a mutual friend of ours on, was it the extension or something like that? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I heard about MaryEllen before I met her, and I was encouraged, like, you have to go see MaryEllen present. Now, unlike Natalia, I met in person first, and I started following her. MaryEllen, I was just like, well, who is this MaryEllen West? I'm going to go watch her. And I was sold. I'm like, we've got to get her doing doing consulting with us, right? And get her voice outside of just the Atlanta area and all over the place. It's such a great story, MaryEllen.
Right.
Yeah. All right, Kim.
Oh my goodness. I've just enjoyed listening to everybody and just thinking about kind of my story while, you all were talking. And I mean, you all are absolutely phenomenal, but just my story. I started out, I majored in education technology in undergrad when there was kind of nothing that anybody even thought of education technology before then. And so I just remember it's so funny because my professor, older professor, and she's only like 5 years older than me. And so she brought me back to a class last week during kind of like lunchtime. And she wanted me to talk to the students that are in undergrad now. And we were just talking about like wikis and blogs and, WebTC, which is kind of now Blackboard. And so it's so funny how all of those things, because I was always thinking like, why do I need to do a blog? This has nothing to do with anything. I just want to teach teachers and I just want to teach kids about computers. This is nothing. And so it's so funny now how the world has changed, from 1999 into now, and just becoming a Googley woman. I mean, I just, just that trajectory of coming from majoring in education technology. It's only 2 of us in a program. We had no idea what we were doing. We've taken so many classes from graphic design to automation and CAD and computer science because no one knew what education technology was. And so then when I discovered like Google for Education, it really just took a spark into me. And I just really wanted to learn more and just becoming a blended learning specialist before I became the director. I mean, everybody was taking this Google certification, level 1 and level 2. And like we were racing to take the test because I wanted to pass the test. And it's so funny because we had taken tests like ICT in Mississippi and STEM certifications. And it was nothing to compare to this Google for Education, certification for a level 1 and level 2. So I just wanted to take it. And I just took it one day. I didn't even study. It's so crazy because I was just like, I'm going to take this test because I want to pass it because everybody has this level 1, level 2, and I need to take it. And then it just became like, you want to be a trainer, and then becoming an innovator just literally changed my life because I was able to meet, people like you all and just becoming that amazing, that amazing tribe that you have. It's just really just changed me. And so that's kind of, my story just in regards to just building that community, building that, safe space, and just looking at that passion that I had with the Innovator Project and just looking at, hey, women really need to, and I'm glad it's Women History Month that we're doing this, of course, but women really need to, be in the forefront and have that, say so. And whatever is happening, they need a seat at the table. So I definitely think that, the advocacy work really helped me change becoming an innovator as well.
Kim, I appreciate the things that you said, and I want to come back to them in just a moment. But, again, I heard about Kim Lane Clark, and I'm like, I have to go see her present and meet her in person. And I was so impressed with her that, I started hiring her as a consultant. And I just feel so fortunate that I have, the pleasure of working with all 3 of you for many years now. And you all do such great work. Now, let's come back to something that Kim said. She used the phrase, have a seat at the table. So the 4 of us know that notoriously men are more prominent in educational technology, especially at the leadership level. Do any of you want to speak to that before I tell my origin story, which I think everybody's heard a million times, so it's kind of boring. But do you want to speak to how you got your voice? Because you're all leaders in your districts, right? How did you find your voice there?
I think I can go unless somebody else wants to jump in. It felt like I had to prove a lot to be honest. I felt like I had to prove that I was intelligent enough, that I had the leadership skills that were needed, that this Latina had enough knowledge to teach other children. It was, for me, it was not only, the fact that I'm a woman, but also the fact that I'm a minority. So it's, it was difficult at first to kind of make way for my own self. So one of the things that I told, I think I had an interview with Easty once about this exact same topic. And one of the things that I said was, you have to believe in yourself. And you have to use that belief in yourself as your engine to help you move past and break the barriers and break the stereotypes and, stand for what it is that you need to stand for, and help make the way for other women and for other minorities, to be in leadership positions. It's not easy, but if you believe in yourself and you know your worth, you have to fight and show what your worth is.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Natalia. Who's next?
I was just going to kind of piggyback on what Natalia was saying, because for me, I mentioned that it was a principal I was working for as a teacher who really gave me that push. And then later, it was actually Lisa, a mutual friend of ours, who gave me a push as a presenter. And so it took a long time, Natalia, for me to have that belief in myself. And I wish I'd had it sooner, but I'm so thankful for the people that pushed me and encouraged me. And that inspired me that now I try at every chance I get to do that for others. Because if they don't yet have that self-confidence and I can help in some way, I want other women to know you are enough. You are worthy. You are smart and brilliant. And you can do this. I believe in you. So if you don't have that belief yet, borrow mine, because I've got it for you. Take it, borrow it. I've got you until you've got it yourself and beyond, right? So again, part of my mission is to empower other people, because other people have done that for me. So that's where I push. I want, if you don't have that self-confidence, Natalia, that absolutely everyone needs, then let me give it to you.
Thanks, MaryEllen. Kim, what would you like to add?
I mean, you all have just really summed it up as well. Being able to find your voice and being able to just take whatever your passion is and create it into your brand. And when I say your brand, it's just not, we're thinking about something that you're selling. It's you, because you're the one that tells your story. I always post, things on Twitter saying like, hey, sis, tell your story. Don't allow someone else to tell your story. And it's just what you all are saying just really echoes as to where and why you should do that. And so that everyone that, sees you, that are in, students, young ladies that are actually going to come before us or after us, it's just where a testament is to where they need to be able to hear and see who we are. They need to be able to see people that look like us so that they can dream and imagine. Because, when we were, actually in school, I know when I had no one that looked like me that was in these roles. I never would have imagined that I would be here now, speaking with you all, and we're live. You just have to believe in yourself. And so, what Natalia is just saying, it's just so important that we should all have just engraved in our heart so that it's able to be echoed even when we don't speak.
It's so true, and to encourage each other, right? I know that I think it's super important as someone who hires consultants. Like, I try to give praise and encouragement and appreciation for the work that you all do. So I found my voice in 2006. So I had left the classroom and I was working at the university level doing K-12 public outreach for Rutgers University in New Jersey. And a colleague of mine at Rutgers told me that she saw an application for the Google Teacher Academy. Now, the Google Teacher Academy that I applied to was the second one ever, and it was held in New York. And I remember spending 10 hours working on my video. It's awful. I used Windows Movie Maker. Like, you know, we're talking 2006 here. And I was in the right place at the right time. And not everybody has that experience. After I attended that, I was invited by Google to present at the next 10 Google Teacher Academies. They sent me all over the world. I got to go to Australia. I got to go to England. It was my first time in Texas. It was my first time in Chicago, all over the place. And I feel really fortunate that there was a woman at Google who liked my style and gave me that opportunity. So, you know, I recognize her for doing that. And it was Kristen Fradella. She's still at Google now. We used to call her, you know, the godmother of the Google Teacher Academy. But, you know, I'm still friends with her to this day, but she gave me that opportunity. And because of that certification, that Google Teacher, being a Google Teacher, and now it's Google Innovator, right? That opened so many doors for me as a consultant. But I tried to pay my dues, and I presented at every conference that I possibly could have and not get paid. So, you know, I just presented, got my name out there. I became the second certified trainer in the world. August 24th, 2010, they opened the program the day before. There's an educator in Iowa that beat me out for that slot. And at the time I had left Rutgers and I brought my Google for EDU program over to Kane University. And when I got to Kane, I talked to the president of the university. I'm like, I want to host a Google Summit. And that's one of the questions that our friend Peggy asked in the chat, like, how did the Google Summits get started? Well, at that point, there was no logo from Google. There was no playbook. I ran the second Google Summit ever, and it was awesome. And actually, someone else in the chat was one of my very first sponsors, Dan Taylor. And Dan Taylor's the founder of Apps Events. So Dan and I go way back, and he was there as a sponsor at the first ever Google Summit in New York, New Jersey area. And he hadn't even founded Apps Events yet. I know Dan was there for another purpose, actually. But and then I decided to go work for an ed tech startup, and I got to just teach Google everywhere. I got to work with consultants from all over the world instead of just the New York, New Jersey area. And now I'm a certified coach because I decided I'm going back into a school. When COVID hit, I felt so horribly for all of the educators and administrators and students and parents going through this. And I really wanted to help. And so I'm really fortunate that a position was created at Milburn High School in Milburn, New Jersey. And I'm now the technology facilitator there. That's a technology coach. And I work one-to-one with teachers. I run an amazing student tech team, which I've always wanted to do. And, you know, just a note on that, in all the applicants that we had for the student tech team, we had one female apply. And I was really bummed. Like, I reached out to the teachers and I'm like, applications close in like 2 days and we only have one female. But she's amazing and she's holding her own with all the other guys. And I'm hoping next year we can get some more females on the team. But I just, I just feel so fortunate that I've been given these opportunities and that I've been able to find folks like you and give them opportunities opportunities and ask, you guys to join me on a morning like this to share your story, and so that people can hear your voice. Even though your voices are loud, I want to continue amplifying them. Ladies, thank you so much for having this chat and sharing our Googly women stories. I'm super excited to watch your presentations today. We have a couple of things going on. So actually, Kim's going to be our first speaker today, and she's going to be talking about choice boards. Natalia, I didn't actually mean to switch slides yet. Natalia is going to be talking about, Natalia, are you going to be talking about English language learners? Yep, perfect, thank you. And I know I'm going back and forth here. Am I making everyone dizzy yet? MaryEllen, you're going to be talking about choose your own adventure with Google Slides, right?
Actually, interactives, drag and drop and fillables, that kind of thing.
Awesome. And then, our last 20 so minutes together, I'm going to be talking about all those Google certifications and just talking to you about which one's which and what you need to do and what the application is for, coach and trainer and innovator. And I'll go over all of that with you. So I'm going to hand everything over in just a moment to Kim. First, before I did that, I just wanted to mention that Apps Events is not just Google. We have a really awesome, amazing partnership with ISTE through our AE Learning Lab. Get it? AE Apps Events, AE Learning Lab. There's a cohort starting in California time, Pacific Standard Time. It's coming up in a week or so, and you can learn more about that at bit.ly/ISTE online. And just remember that bit.lys are case sensitive, but I'll flash that URL up on the screen for everyone in a minute. So without further ado, and I want to just wave goodbye for now to Natalia and MaryEllen. Bye, ladies. We'll see you back in a little while here. And my mouse decided not to work. Here we go. So without further ado, I'm going to ask Kim to take over. And Kim, I'm really excited to learn more about choice boards. I've done a few of them and I've worked with a few of them, but you are the master of choice boards. So I'm going to add your presentation to the stream. And I'm going to remove myself for right now. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much. This is actually Choose Your Own Adventure. And so we're going to talk about a couple of things with Google Forms and choice boards as well. And so I'm actually going to share two different things so that you all are able to see it. So when you're thinking about choosing your own adventure and choosing your own, I'm sorry, let me go ahead and click present so that you can see it. Perfect, 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 perfect. I'm looking at the other slide and I know it's always like a delay that looks on there. So just wanted to make sure that you can see that now. Yay! Okay, so when we're thinking about actually choice boards and choosing your own adventure, what comes into mind? Student choice is so important. And when we're thinking about student voice, student choice, what happens with that? What happens when you're able to give those students that type of feeling that they're able to choose their own adventure? And so the first thing that we're going to talk about are Google Forms. And so Google Forms, you can actually add them into choice boards as well. But I kind of thought about when you're, especially now that we're in March and testing season is coming about, what about the assessments? I kind of switched it up and we're thinking about how can students choose their own adventure when they're actually doing reviews or doing certain things that you need them to be able to kind of go through and see if they have actually learned. And so choice boards are exactly something that you should think about, but we're looking at Google Forms right now. So I'm actually going to take 10 minutes to look at Google Forms, and then I'm going to share another slide looking at choice boards, okay? Hopefully everybody is good with that. So kind of thinking about the why, and I kind of talked about that kind of previously before we kind of went to this next slide. And so I showed you all kind of the learning objectives for today, but we're kind of switching back and forth. And so just to reiterate the why, when you're looking at choice, students should be able to have that choice and voice to be able to bring out the best of them. And so how do you create that in a classroom, especially if it's review time? Because like I stated, it is, March, and you're wanting to, get in and see what students have learned, especially during the pandemic. This has been different. And, students might not have learned what you would have actually taught them actually in the classroom. But I know that there has been some phenomenal teachers and some teaching has been going on, whether or not if they are hybrid, if they are virtual, if they are remote, like whatever the case may be, they've learned because you matter. And that's exactly, I always have to put that in there, especially during the pandemic. But we're going to first look at where it talks about student actually self-grading quizzes. And so we've seen Google Forms. You've probably looked at where Google Forms and there's self-grading quizzes, you can grade the quiz. But something that I want to point out are branching. If you've never heard of branching before, this is an amazing graphic that Casey Bell actually created. But this basically looks at what students have a question. And so it takes the quiz up to another level, okay? And so you have a question, and then if they get the answer wrong, then it takes them back to actually a review skill. They're going to review, and then it'll take them back to question 1 to see if they have that answer. So why is this important? Why is it, are you saying like, hey, this is a really not student choice? No, it's not, but it's giving students an ability to actually review a skill and get that deeper understanding and then take them back to the actual answer. And it gives them the ability to be able to go to question 2 once they get it right. So it's giving them an additional opportunity to be able to have that choice, to be able to choose the next answer. So that's what we're kind of thinking about with this. And then question 2, it'll take them to kind of the wrong skill. Well, if they have the wrong skill, if they get it wrong, then they review the skill. But if not, then they just go on to question 3. Okay. So let's go back over this. So basically branching happens when you as the teacher have a question, and then they actually go, and if they get the answer wrong, they actually have the ability to review a skill. Then they go back to the next question and see if they got it right. And then they go on to the next question. Okay. So this is just another form that you can give students the ability to relearn a skill that you've taught them. Okay. So I really like Google Forms. Now, so just a couple of things that you can do when you're thinking about choosing your own adventure with Google Forms is that to just plan ahead. Think about the question at task. Think about the question that you want to ask. Think about what happens when the students get the answer correct. Do you want to give them choice to actually go on to another activity? Or do you want to give them the choice to review a skill? That's where you're creating that choosing your own adventure. And then what happens when students get the answer incorrect? Thinking about that. Actually, hey, am I going to make them, review a skill, or am I going to tell them, hey, you need to go and, do a flip grid on why you missed the actual answer, just whatever the case may be. And I'm just kind of making up some things with that. But this is the actual link that shows you how to create a Google form with choosing your own adventure. And so you can kind of just jot that down and go to it. And it just gives you step by step as to how to create that branching with choosing your own adventure. So I'm actually going to switch gears here. And I probably should have put this in actually 2 of the presentations, but I didn't. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again and share when we look at choice boards. Okay. So we're going to look at choice boards. I wanted to have this both here because I felt like it was definitely beneficial to show you different ways, just not just the choice board. So that's why I kind of chose that piece of it. And so it's pulling up now. And I kind of talked about the benefits prior to us kind of going over the Google Forms, but I want to make sure that you have a clear understanding of why choice is important, okay? Why is choice important? And so let's go over that. And I'm going to just go back here. Perfect. Engagement. Engagement is a definite benefit of giving students choice, okay? Also differentiating. And so we hear a lot of times where basically, how do I differentiate? How do I differentiate in a remote learning environment? How do I differentiate when some students are hybrid, some students are actually in a classroom? And so that's where the choice boards come into play. Also, it gives the students decision-making skills. So remember, we talked about with Google Forms. Okay, well, if the student gets the answer correct, maybe you'll give them a different choice. Maybe you'll give them a different opportunity to either go forward or say, hey, I'm going to do something else. Thinking about those things are the benefits of why you want to actually give students choice. So engagement, differentiation, and decision-making are some great ways that you can think about for benefits of choice as well. Now, what's all the fuss about? So when we think about these things and going into individualization, differentiation, personalization, you all, there are a lot of talk around what are the differences with these? What are the differences? How do I individualize? How do I actually differentiate? How do I personalize? We talked about differentiate on the previous slide, but how do I personalize? And so creating those choice boards gives that ability for you to be able to personalize each student's learning trajectory, okay? Also individualization, and it's such a long word to say, and you try to say all those together. Individualization, differentiation, personalization. Say those 3 times and let me know what happens. But when we're thinking about how do I take what students are learning and make it to where each student has their own learning path. So choice boards can do this as well. And so some things that I want you to think about, and I know this is a lot of words on this slide, and I try to make sure that I don't do this too often, but these are really valuable, great information that you want to think about. And so when we're allowing students to have those choices, if you have 100 choices that students can make once they finish a particular project or on a choice board as well, it can be definitely overwhelming. And students will, come and say, Miss, it's so funny when I was in the classroom, students would say, Miss, what am I supposed to be doing right now? And it's so funny that they always used to say Miss, but start with a few choices, okay? Start with where you're able to actually just introduce one tool at a time. Give them, where the choices just include the product, the tool, and whether or not you're going to allow them to do individual or group work, okay? So just thinking about those things when you're wanting to create these choice boards, okay? And so I'm going to kind of skip with these challenges because I always want to address challenges that teachers have when they're thinking about their choice boards or thinking about in their classrooms. Hey, I'm going to create these choice boards, but I have all these challenges that arise as well. So just thinking about those things as well. I'm not going to play this video. I'm actually going to skip on, but I just want to show you a couple of choice boards, the differences of choice boards. And the previous video was created by the blended learning when I was actually in my previous school district as the director of blended learning. We really leaned on Raise Your Hand Texas. It is actually an initiative to bring in blended learning into the classroom. And this was prior to the pandemic. And so when I was actually in my district, we really focus on choice boards, especially at one of the campuses where students were in early college. Students really talked about why they like the choice boards. And so this is the choice board that you see right now. And when I was in my previous district, I really wanted the teachers to see the power of choice. And so we kind of talked about that previously on what are some reasons that, definitely you should actually embed choice boards, whatever you're doing. And so this is just an example of one. And so you notice here, it just talks about kind of the unit 7. And so I want to stop right here because choice boards can be whatever you create them to be. It's not really a template that you're going to create. Now, there are some tic-tac-toe choice boards. We had some, in my previous district where where teachers had choice boards where, it was kind of a contest. So this choice board is literally just a Google Doc. And basically it talks about Unit 7, America Goes from Boom to Bust, okay? And so it just gives the students the ability to think about what they want to do to complete that project and actually show that they know about this unit, okay? That's all what this is actually going into. And so it gives the topics on there. So then I want to go for you all to kind of just look at this, at the last piece of it. Now, I noticed I didn't click out on the last slide because we don't have a lot of time, but I want to just focus in on this piece right here where we think about, oops, sorry about that. And I know I'm going back and forth. But this right here where it was by Sylvia Duckworth, who I absolutely love. But this level of engagement. So just think about this when we're looking at actual choice boards as well. And so, what type of level of engagement do you want? There are levels. And so sometimes it doesn't have to be all on the same level when you're creating these choice boards. Okay. So I just wanted to just kind of pay attention to just that and just thinking about the levels of engagement when you're creating whatever type of activity that you're doing in the classroom or even with teachers as well. So this is another choice board that I wanted to show you all. And these are all created by teachers. I did not create any of these choice boards. This is just a gallery that if we were actually doing a session, you would be able to take and look and see what type of choice board you want to create. Okay. So these are done by some phenomenal teachers. And just remember that they're all different types that you can actually utilize. So this says the ideas of industrial age choice board. So basically here they have where they can get the bonus points, but it's looking at the different, pieces of the industrial age as well, but they're able to pick and choose, they have where they're doing Glockster, they're having a Prezi, and just remember some of these actual tools could be, you can use another tool to actually represent this. It's just giving you an idea. So Glockster is kind of like a portfolio type infographic piece, kind of all into one, or you can use, another tool. So just thinking about that, basing trading cards, templates, so just giving them options, and it gives them bonus points as well if they wanted to choose that. So then here's another one. This is the one created by Casey Bell that I talked about, the tic-tac-toe. And this is a novel study. And so this is a tic-tac-toe actual menu that students can choose from. So notice it says start with number 5 and then make 2 other choices to make your tic-tac-toe. And so then students could turn this in. And you can take these ideas and create it for whatever content area that you're teaching in the classroom. It definitely doesn't matter what content area. It could be music, it could be art, it could be PE. You're just giving those students choice, and you're remembering, hey, am I differentiating? Hey, am I individualization or individualizing? And also, what am I doing to be able to bring this into a personalized learning experience for each student? Because it's not a one size fit all at any time in the classroom. And it's so hard to be able to do this. And this is why I believe in choice boards and Google Forms because of that. Okay. So this is another one that you can look at. This is the American Revolution Choice Board Project. Okay. And so they have like creating political cartoons, some things that you would already do in the classroom. You're just combining this together and creating a choice. Okay. And so, especially when, I'm going to actually go back to this, especially when, even the littles, and I always call them littles because I always taught secondary, middle school and high school students. And so when I think about the littles, they sometimes scare me, but they can definitely do choice boards. Of course, you won't want to do the American Revolution, but you can definitely give them, and I would start out with maybe 3, just little choices that they can choose from, to be able to look at and see if they're able to actually do that. And it's just a way for you to have intervention time as well, because you're giving these students choice boards, but then you want to have where you have maybe like 3 students that you're meeting with, or it's a one-on-one as well. So you're doing the work as well when the students have this choice to be able to do that. Okay. So that's kind of what I want to actually go over with you all. I think my time is almost up, but I just want to reiterate a couple things when you're thinking about what student choice and voice looks like. Just make sure that you start small, make sure that you set time limits, and give feedback to whatever you are giving out to your students. So that is it. That's my time for today. Thank you so much for joining.
Oh, thanks, Kim. I appreciate you sharing that all with us. Actually, one of the questions from the chat was, would you mind giving a link to the deck? You had some really great resources in there. You can either give it to me, or you can go on YouTube into the stream there and post it, whichever works for you. But I appreciate that overview. I'm going to use a couple of those resources myself and share them with the teachers that I work with.
I am actually going on here right now, you all, and sharing it. My apologies that I didn't share it initially.
No problem. No problem. I hope that you enjoy the rest of your Saturday. Thank you for joining us this morning. It's always nice to see you, even though I got to see you the other day. But it's always nice to see you. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And Kim, I'll go ahead and take you out. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you so much. So I did want to just speak real quickly. So Google's had all these changes lately. It's so crazy. Oh my gosh, a total rebrand, right? It's not Giuseppe anymore. It's not GAIF. It's not G Suite. And I had to actually write it on a Post-it because it hasn't been embedded in my head yet. But it is Google Workspace. And you're going to be seeing, if you haven't already seen, that there's a bunch of different versions of Google Workspace, and formerly known as Giuseppe or G Suite for Enterprise for Education is now going to be Google Workspace Plus. If you don't have access to the features of the top tier of the Google offerings, you can sign up for a free trial with us, and you'll be in communication probably with Dan Taylor or someone else from the team, and they'll set you up with a trial so that you can test it out. Apps Events does sell those licenses, so we're happy to help you with that as well. But I know lots of people have been taking advantage of that free trial just to have it in their domain and see what it looks like. So I just wanted to take a moment to mention that, and I'll drop the bit.ly in the chat in a little bit. So I'm super excited because, oops, am I going backwards? Our next presentation, I've been saying I'm excited all morning. I'm just always excited because I have so much fun doing all of this stuff. But next we're going to be talking or hearing from Natalia. She's going to be talking about ELL and G Suite integration. So I'm going to go ahead and add Natalia back to the stream and add her presentation. And Natalia, take it away.
All right. Well, hey, everyone. Thank you for sticking around. It's my turn. So I am going to talk about ways that we can help support English language learners, parents, and students during distance learning and beyond. So let me just move over here. I'm going to see if you guys can see my screen, right? Okay. So this is one of my students. Some of the best practices that I've seen and that I've experienced, and some ideas as well, I'll share with you today. But let's start with some support for our parents and the English language learners, parent and their community. One of the things that you can use is obviously translation and interpretation support. For home communication, it is recommended that we send short, concise, and simple language. Excuse me, that our communication is frequent, and we use announcements, reminders, and information, again, with very simple language. The reason for that is because if we want to translate, if the parents need to translate your communication, using idioms and phrases and slang is usually not recommended, because translators don't usually translate those very well. There is also an option to teach your students and your parents, if you guys do like parent universities or any type of community engagement activity after school hours. You can teach your parents to watch the YouTube videos that you may send as instructions for your kids. Have them learn how to do the auto translate with the captions. As you can see in that little GIF image I put in there, it's very easy. You can just go to the settings on the video when it's playing, and then choose the subtitles, and then click the auto translate option, and then they can choose the language that they would like this to be auto translated. So it's really a great feature. Not a lot of people know about that. So it's good that we teach our students and our parents that they can do that. And then obviously, make use of your school community. There's tons of parents that are willing to help, and they are, the ELL community is usually very close, and they are always willing to support each other. So let me switch here. Okay. And then another thing that Google has that is really, really cool, and I challenge you to download it right now if you can, is Google Lens. It is a really cool mobile app. It works on Android and on iPhone. And you're going to look for a little lens icon inside the Photos app on the iPhone version of it. But the Android version, is directly there. But in Google Lens, all you have to do, as you can see in that little GIF that I put in there in the slides, is it auto translates whatever you put in front of it. So this is super helpful for parents that have a smartphone, and they can, translate the information, or the parents can write to you in their language, and then you can use this with your phone and translate whatever they wrote or typed into English. Well, obviously, Google Translate is a great, great tool. It's not obviously a translation that is super, super accurate, but it is the most accurate that we have so far in terms of automation. Microsoft Immersive Reader is another super awesome tool. But then Talking Points is another great tool that you can use as a district, or even as a school building. You can use Talking Points, and I have this presentation ready for you guys, and Lisa will probably drop the link soon. But all of these links that you see here are obviously accessible to all of you. Talking Points, we use this in our district. It uses Google's Translate AI and their technology. So it makes it really cool, because the parent can directly communicate with you in their language. They type in their language, and then you receive it in English. Obviously, each end sets up their language, and so the communication is automatically translated. So you can respond to the parent in English. The parent will receive it in the target language that they chose. So that is pretty cool. So another thing I wanted to talk about now is we talked about a little bit about support for parents and the community. And now let's talk about our students and how we can support them in these difficult times. So I know this is a huge slide with tons of text, and I don't like that. But I wanted to make it nicer, but I thought I'd just leave it like that, make it look a little more academic. But I wanted to talk about this with you. So we know, and I don't know how many of you have had English language learners in your classes, but we know that there are specific needs that these students have. And then I broke down this slide into what their needs are and the possibilities that are given to us by the situations that we're living right now. So the possibilities of distance learning, and then some of the ideas for best practice given the specific needs. So I really wanted to target specific needs, and I wanted you to leave this mini session with some concrete ideas and tools. So what are their needs? One of the biggest needs for a newcomer, for an English language learner in their beginning stages of acquisition of language, is that we as teachers need to provide comprehensible input. What is comprehensible input? Well, comprehensible input is the way that you as a teacher present the information to the students. And some of the features of comprehensible input is appropriate speech. So we're going to slow down the way that we speak. We make simple sentences. We use our body language, our gestures, our intonation patterns. All of those will help the brain understand what is being said. Clear explanation of academic tasks is part of comprehensible input. So we want to make sure that we're providing engaging and effective tasks, and we'll talk about those in my next slide. And then a variety of techniques. So how are you helping their brain retain that information? We can use mnemonic devices. We can use illustrations, videos, voice. There's so many other techniques that you can use to help the brain retain that information. Remember, when a student is presented with new language, what's happening in the brain is that it's coming through your eyes, right? It's also coming through your temporal lobe right here with your ear, and is staying here in the front and Broca's area in the brain where that information is being engraved and processed. So if we help the brain target all of the senses and all of the tools that the brain has to be able to acquire that word and understand it and register it, it's going to be better for our students. So that's why comprehensible input is so important. So let's go back here. Actually, I have to get out of this slide for 1 second. There we go. So for the English language learners, some of the needs, we said comprehensible input, right? Making connections prior to prior knowledge is also super important. How are you making sure that you are delivering instruction with enough information so that their brains can make the connection to prior knowledge or prior experience? How is this important? It's important for you as a teacher to know, because you need to know the students' cultural backgrounds, right? Where are they coming from? Building that relationship with your students is huge. Now, what is the best practice for this? We talked about speaking clearly and slowly, employing pauses, short sentences, simple syntax, and few pronouns and idioms. We said no idioms, no slangs. It's very difficult for them at the beginning of their language acquisition to understand idioms and slangs. So what are the tools, the technology tools that we can use to support the students in this stage, right? There's many. So I put some of the scaffolds in there because, as you know, we use scaffolds to help our students understand. So there's Loom, there's Flipgrid, there's Google Meet, there's Vocaroo. There's so many others that I want to include in here too, but I put just a few there. Also in Google Docs, for example, there is the voice to text option. It's under the tools in Google Docs. So you can use that as well to help them practice their speaking and practice their pronunciation. And also you can use that to dictate your instructions if that's something that will help as well. For guided practice, which is another need for our students, they need visuals that carry meaning. So what do I mean by that? A lot of people and a lot of teachers put just an image there. You're talking about something and then you put an image that somewhat reflects what they're talking about. But it's important that you actually choose something that really carries meaning. I encourage teachers to use GIF images. So why is that? Because if I'm trying to teach a word, for example, shrug, and I want to say, he shrugged doing this, it's very difficult to put a picture of this, right? And then this motion of your body could mean so many different things based on the context. Could be, right? Or could be, I don't know, right? So there's so many different meanings. So it's important that when we use images, we try to use the one that carries the most meaning, okay? So that's why I put in the technology scaffolds GIF images, so that you can use those for your students. Sentence starters are huge, and I think you guys know this, and model. So it's important that we use very specific modeling for our ELLs. What is the best practice here? Use redundancy and discourse markers, keywords, outlines, provide examples and descriptions, not just definitions, because that helps connect the prior knowledge, right? The examples do. The visuals, hands-on resources. So if you're talking about something, bring the object to the classroom so they can touch it and feel it and see what it is. Gestures and graphic organizers. Provide content text at multiple language proficiency levels. What that means is I can modify my speech. I can modify my typing and my discourse, making it less cognitively demanding and more cognitively demanding, right? So that's how another way that we can differentiate for students. What tools can I use for that? I can use rich content with tools such as the GIF images, as I mentioned, digital manipulatives, New CLA, HyperDocs is another great tool with Google Docs, Pear Deck, Kami, which works with Google Docs as well. All of those tools will help you support this particular need for our ELLs. Then the next thing, I only have like 5 minutes left, but I'm rushing here, and I apologize if this is, too much at one time. Another need is independent practice, right? So we want to support our students and provide scaffolds, clear and short instructions and available scaffolds. So what do we do? What do we mean by that? Maybe providing an example with a video, recording ourselves as teachers, explaining the instructions, right? So why is that? Because in distance learning, now I have a child that can actually pause and rewind and take the time that they need. So distance learning also brings some possibilities for us in that sense. And I think I skipped my previous slide when I was talking specifically about the possibilities. So what is the best practice here for this particular need? Creating activities that call upon students to integrate listening, speaking, reading, and writing. Those are the big 4 domains that we want to make sure our ELLs are proficient. So what can I do to make sure that I provide activities that will call upon all of these domains, those 4 domains? Well, creation tools. Those are the best tools that you can use to support this ELL need. And give them choice and voice. And I know Kim talked about choice boards, which is fantastic. And I have another example for you to use specifically for ELLs if you want, which also is applicable to all of the students as well. So we have WeVideo, Soundtrap, Edpuzzle, Prezi, Slides, Google Slides. It's amazing what you can do with Google Slides, and you will see what MaryEllen is going to show you in a minute. And you saw what Kim showed you. Capwing and Book Creator are some really, really good, good tools that will allow the students to use that creativity that will call upon all those 4 domains, right? So when I was a teacher, I wanted to use activities that were similar to real life experiences, to real life events and real life things. So for example, a TV show, a radio show, going to a museum, listening to the tour, the audio tour of a museum. All of those things are things that are happening in real life. So I try to make my activities resemble what kids will encounter in real life. Why? Because it's meaningful. Because if I give them an activity that is meaningful for them, that is actually something that people do in real life, then it carries meaning. It's not something that is going to stay in a piece of paper and it's just another activity my teacher wants me to do, right? It gives them some ownership. And lastly, assessment. This is what we were talking about earlier with Kim. Choice, likes and dislikes, clear expectations. So we want to make sure that we encourage our students to use what they like, and so that we also take into account what they don't like, things that they don't want to discuss at the time, or things that we give them that privacy, but we give them the choice. All right. And that is really important. So creating activities that allow students to have voice and choice in multiple output ways to show their knowledge. And that is important. Multiple output ways. Let's not get stuck on, he's got to write 5 sentences, and those 5 sentences have to have at least 3 adverbs. Let's move away from that and give them the option of being creative and say, I want you to write you're the person that is talking about the weather. You're my weather channel person. If you give them that, then they're going to obviously write the 5 sentences and obviously use the 3 adverbs that you wanted them to use, but in such a more of a meaningful way. And they don't even know that they're doing what you really wanted them to do. So using these creation tools is important. Now, I am done with my time, but my last slide, and it's linked here. I found this on Slides Mania. This is a template that you guys can use, and I'm going to click on it to see if it takes me there. And I want to, how do I share that screen?
Natalia, please take your time. We want to see.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let me go back here and present my screen one more time, real quick here. Tab. All right. So that's not the one. I apologize. That is the template. So that's the link that's going to look like the template I posted. So let's click this one more time. And we're going to choose the correct one. Hoping I did this right. Nope, I did not. I'm going to use this template anyways. So this is what you guys will do. You click on use the template, and this is what you will see. And why am I sharing this? Because, again, something that Kim mentioned, giving the choice and giving the voice. So this, you will give the students the 6 choices, but you have a beautiful template here that all you have to do is just grab and go. Put your stuff in here. There's a place for a video if you want to, record yourself giving the instructions. And these are all of the, the things that you can do with this magnificent template. And at the end, what I like about this template is that at the end, when they're done doing this particular activity that they chose, you can link here and say, click on your name to go to your slide and review or write about what you liked from the activities that you just did. And each of the kids will have their own slide for them to write. So I think this is a great way to close my little time here, giving you something you can take right away, and then use with all of the things that we discussed today in terms of keeping in mind what their needs are. And Lisa will drop that link for you maybe she already did that.
I did.
Thank you so much. And that's all I got. Really, I'm going to stop here.
Natalia, that was awesome. And I love how you talked about voice and choice. And you also focused on meaningful activities. We educators struggled so much during this pandemic. And I know a lot of students have returned or are returning to face-to-face instruction, but it's been such a pivot to figure out how best to deliver instruction. And I think meaningful activities is such a big part of that.
Thank you. Yeah. And I like in that link, you will see some of the possibilities that we can discuss when in distance learning. So why distance learning sometimes could be beneficial for our ELLs and how we can maximize that benefit.
Thank you so much for sharing with us this morning. I learned so much. I always learn from you. I hope you enjoy the rest of your Saturday and that I get to see your smiling face again soon.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
All right. Bye-bye. So I just wanted to mention before our next speaker, MaryEllen, I just wanted to mention that Apps Events is here to support you in becoming a Google for Education certified coach. So I'm sorry, I was just looking at the branding to make sure the branding was correct. So much branding has changed for Google, and at Apps Events, we've just tried to make sure that we are using the correct branding across the board. But I'll drop this link in the chat so that you have a live hyperlink. I am a certified coach, and we've got a great team of mentors here ready to work with you or a group of folks at your district to help you along in that journey. And having said that, next up, I'm super excited. I'm going to add MaryEllen to the stream right now. We've got MaryEllen, and she's going to be talking about Google Slides and interactive activities. I am going to, just in a moment, add MaryEllen's link to the chat, and I'm still waiting on Kim's link. Those of you that have been asking, I'm doing my best. So MaryEllen, take it away. I will add your slides and remove me. I'll see you in a little bit.
Awesome. Thanks so much. So Lisa's going to put the link to this page of my website in the chat for you all. And so you can see it's not just a slide deck. You have tons and tons and tons of activities here. I love that we're all talking about choice and voice. We've got choice board templates here as well. But what we're going to focus on today in these 20 minutes, and it's really short, so please go check out the help guides and the templates that are here. But I'm going to focus mostly on items in this interactive slides template. And if you click on that, then you have the option to use the template, and that'll make a copy of it so that it's yours, and you can build out from that template. But the reason that I started making these is that I have been seeing during this pandemic, teachers are going and purchasing lessons and slide decks from different sites. And more than anything, I just feel like teachers need to be empowered themselves. And I don't want anyone going and buying all of these things that they can, just make themselves. So this template, yes, it's, of course, free and you can use it. But also, I'd love to talk through how to create some of these things completely on your own without falling into some of the difficulties and troubles that I see happening quite a bit. So there's a sequencing one. I love this one where we're kind of taking that DOK level up a little bit, and students are answering, explaining, and using nonverbal representation. Drag and drop, so this is a labeling one. Another drag and drop, and of course we want them to explain their thinking. So again, all of these sorting activities, all of these of course you can use, and we're going to kind of dig into exactly how you can create these on your own, even if the templates don't meet your needs. So what I see often as my teachers start to build these things out is they end up getting really frustrated. And here's why. So this is an example of an interactive slide that was submitted by a student. And the teacher was really frustrated, and so was the student, to be honest, because this is what it originally looked like. And as the student went to try and drag and drop these shapes in order to make the graph, what happened is that everything got moved around. The student was clicking and trying to drag, but they moved around the table and moved different items that they weren't supposed to move. Now, that certainly could be done on purpose, of course. Kids are tricky. But in this case, everyone was just frustrated. The teacher had worked so hard to create this activity, and then it didn't turn out as we wanted. So the biggest thing to me in creating these interactive activities is that you don't want students to be able to move the things, right? Like the parts of this chart or table, you don't want students to be able to move things that they're not supposed to move. And there are two ways to make that happen. One is that any slide can be downloaded. And so you can go to File, Download, and then I would choose PNG. The reason for that is that you can have a transparent background, so you can just see the things that you want. But you can download it as a PNG, and then you can pull it back into a slide deck. It can be set as the background or just pulled back in. And some folks are doing that, and that's totally fine. For me, that's not my preferred method, and the reason why. And I feel like I've shared, all of these things that I'm not great at with you guys today. I'm not great at taking tests. I'm also a really horrible speller. So inevitably, I'm going to realize I made a mistake and I need to fix it. And if I've downloaded as an image and then added that image back, that's a lot of steps to go back and redo. I also find that when you add the image back in, because of sizing, it tends to get a little bit blurry if there are words. So my preference is to use something called the master slide. If you've never heard of the master slide, it's actually used to create all the different layouts, right? So all the different layouts, you can customize your theme, right? Using the master slide as well. So if you're like me and you like to make things pretty, you might want to play with that master slide for other reasons. So if you go to View, Master, what you're going to find is that you have all of those different layouts for the theme that you're currently using, right? This one at the top is actually called the master, and then below that you have all the different layouts. Any change that I make here is going to affect every slide that uses this theme, this layout. And anything that I do here is going to affect every single slide in the deck using this theme. So I like to use the master to put things in the background, right? So then students can't move it. So you can see down here, instead of building this on just the slide, I built it here in the master. Okay, so everything that I don't want students to be able to move, I put on the master slide. So if I exit, I'm just going to click this little X. Now I know I'm no longer on the master because I don't have that dark background. When I go to add another slide, of course, I have those different layout options, and one of them includes what I just created, right? I mean, I actually created it earlier, but what I just showed you. So for every layout, hey, I can have that. Now students can't move around all of the things that as a teacher, I don't want them to move. It's super pretty, super clear, and I can go back in and change it if I realize that I made a spelling mistake or some other mistake. Then the next thing I need to be able to do is to add all of these shapes, right? And I don't know about you guys, but I feel like teachers right now need every spare second that we can give. Teachers are doing so much, working so hard, well beyond the typical workday. And so I love showing little tips and tricks. And these tips and tricks are kind of used throughout these different options, different template slides that we have in that template deck for you. So if I want to add shapes, for example, right, I'm just going to add a shape. And I'm going to have it fit right here. And I'm going to give it a fill color red, okay? So I could do that little process over and over and over again in order to have a whole bunch of red rectangles. But instead, I can use the keyboard shortcut, and I could use Control-C, Control-V to copy paste. But again, I like saving every little second. So I'm actually going to use Control or Command-D, and that duplicates. Okay, so I can do that a bunch of times. Control-D. Now I have all of these red rectangles. The next little trick is that I'm going to select all of these at once. So I'm going to click in the top left corner and drag a little box around them to select all of them. And then what I'm going to do is I want them in a nice, neat little stack. So I'm going to right click and I am going to align them horizontally. Boom, they all jump over. And then I'm going to right click and I'm going to align them vertically. And now they're in a nice stack. Now, I have to do that for all of my other colors. So I'm still going to use that same little trick. Right now, they're all selected, right? Because I selected all of them at once, and then I then I stacked them. So I'm going to use Control D again. Okay, so now I've got this other little stack, and I'm just going to change the color of that one and move it down here. Okay, I can select this one as well, all of these, move them down here, and I would continue that with all the different colors. But what's great, now when I push this out to students as make a copy for every student in Google Classroom, they can click and move these, and you can see, right, when I duplicated that entire stack from red to blue, the entire stack is blue, right? Because I just kind of followed that order and that process. So I created one, I duplicated, I aligned them, right? Right click, align horizontally, right click, align vertically, put them in a stack. They were still all selected, duplicated that one, changed the color, right? And so you just move on like that. So it's super, super quick, fast, and easy so that you can have little stacks, okay? So this next slide, this is from that template. And this is a drag and drop activity. So all of these items, right, are added to the master slide, okay? And the only thing on the regular slide, it would be these shapes, okay? And this oval is just a shape, okay? All I did when I created the shape, right, I'm gonna draw it around here. And when you create a shape, you have all these tools, right? And so I, change the border color and the thickness, make it a little bit more clear. And then the trick here to make it this oval that you can see through, right? So that it's like circling the correct answer, is that I just made the fill color transparent. So any shape can have that transparent fill color, and then really all you're seeing is the border, right? So that can be super, super helpful to just create these little, almost draggable items for students, but that you can actually see through them. So that is, you can quickly and easily create then these quick little, and of course that was duplicated as well so that they were all the same size, right? So super easy then to create that kind of draggable activity. That was the same way that this one was created, right? Except here, instead of shapes, I just brought in images, but images can be duplicated just and stacked and aligned just like shapes can, right? So get them to the size that you want and then duplicate and align them with that right click, align horizontally and vertically as well. So there are lots and lots and lots in each of these stacks. So obviously there are a lot of different ways that you could create $12.75. Students choose on their own, and then they also explain their thinking in the box, okay? So when you create these boxes, if you want students to type, what you're going to see here, I just clicked on that, and did you see that the cursor started flashing? This little trick was incredibly helpful, actually, because of something that happened with my own son. He was working on Google Slides that teachers had assigned, and the teacher had added a text box. Okay, great. So I'm going to just put one up here. Teacher had created a text box. Perfect. Awesome. I think that, it had a border because text boxes also have a fill color and a border color, just like shapes do. And shapes, by the way, if you double click on a shape, you can type in it. So kind of a text box is a shape and a shape is a text box. But what happened with my son, so he had a text box he was supposed to type in, but he called me over during distance learning and said, "Mom, I'm supposed to type right here. I'm supposed to give an answer, but I can't do anything. There's nothing there." He was clicking, and there was nowhere for him to type. what happened is that he clicked on the text box, and I think there was even some text there that said, type your answer here. And so he was trying to delete those words, type your answer here. And instead, the entire text box was selected, and he clicked backspace, and it was gone. What I see often is that when students with a text box, they go to try to type in it, but instead of double clicking, they single click, or they're trying to delete, placeholder text, and then they accidentally delete the whole thing. So what I did down here instead was actually to add a 1-by-1 table. Okay, so if I go to Insert, Table, and just choose 1-by-1, now I can drag the corners of this and make it fit wherever I want. I still have the options for fill color and border color if you want those to be there. But now, so this looks just like that text box looked, except that now when a student clicks once, they get a flashing cursor. So for students like my son with a processing disorder, where he's not thinking forward enough to realize, oh, I need to double click, right? And he's just going, jumping in. He gets that visual. Hey, flashing cursor. Now I know that I can just type, right? And so that has been really powerful for a lot of students as well. So I also want to point out, and I love that we've all been talking about student choice and meeting the needs of all of our students. With Google Classroom and with Google, Slides, pairing them together, it's super easy to differentiate. So on this example, okay, this is another slide from those templates. Here, students are asked to convert pounds to ounces. And so they've got pounds in a column and then ounces, right? And this student would be asked to type in the correct answer. So again, I've used that 1-by-1 table to have an easy place for students to just type their answers in. And it's individual little boxes so that there's not stuff going all over the place. So this would be for students who are at that level where they're ready to do the calculations completely on their own. But keep in mind that some students might not be quite there. There might be a need for more scaffolding. And then later, of course, we're going to want them to take it even further and create completely on their own, but we do have to scaffold to get there. So in Google Classroom, this slide I would assign to students who are ready to do the calculations on their own. But I might have students who are not quite there. So if I copy this slide, right, and paste it into a new slide deck, I can make some alterations and have this be at a different level for other students. When I go to this next one, you can see this is the same activity, but I've removed those 1-by-1 tables, and instead, here I have answers for the students to drag and drop. So for students who are not quite at that level, I can assign separately. In Google Classroom, instead of assigning to every student, you can select specific students. So some of my students will get one where, hey, same questions, but I'm differentiating. You're ready to determine the answers completely on your own. Other students, I'll assign a different slide deck, and for them, they have drag and drop, and so the options are there. And again, I've aligned and stacked these. Now, what I did for these, okay, this is not just a shape, because then they could click into it and change the text. Instead, I actually used Google Drawings, another tool, to create these, and you could do that in slides as well. But and you have the template for that Google Drawing as well in that templates slide deck. But I created this in Google Drawings and then downloaded as an image. And then in that Google Drawing, I just changed the number, file, download as a PNG, download the next one, and pulled them all in here. and again, aligned and stacked them. So a lot of times when I show this and how you can differentiate, the same activity for students at different readiness levels, people ask, well, would I assign, couldn't I just assign both in the same slide deck? And I guess you could, and kind of even let students choose which one they're ready for, but then you might want the numbers to be different as well. What I would say is just to take one slide. So if I select one slide and I copy it, and then I create a new slide deck. Another thing that I love about slides, and I just use slides.new because that's the easiest way to create a new slide deck on the fly. In Google Slides, when I, from one slide deck, copy a slide, and then the new slide deck, got it. And the new slide deck, I paste. Come on, and I went over here and then I use Control V. The entire slide comes in. I do get this import slides. There's other ways to import slides as well. Asking, if I want a link and if I want to match the styles in this presentation or keep my original. Now, one thing I love is when I say keep my original styles, this is super cool. Now, when I go to choose the layout, I actually have all of those layouts, right? So that's a way to pull, it's really pulling a theme, right? But I'm pulling all of my layouts into this separate and different slide deck. So then I can reuse any of those that I want to here as well, make those simple changes. This one I would assign to students, at this level, and then in my original, in here, then I would assign to the other students. Hey, Lisa.
Hi. I don't think people want you to stop, to be honest. I feel bad that I'm the next speaker because they're going to be like, bring that MaryEllen back. Like that one cell table.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I can't wait to show my colleagues that in the elementary buildings on Monday morning. I'm so excited. I'm going to look like I'm so smart.
That one is so fun. So fun. Well, there's lots of other tips and tricks in those help guides. Wish I could go on about this stuff for hours. So wish that we had more time, but definitely check out those resources and get more tips and tricks there.
Now, do you have a minute for a question?
Absolutely.
So thinking about the master slides, you can have multiple master slides by making them in the different layouts, right?
Yeah, so every layout has its own master, right? And then what's also really cool, so there's, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. But then you can actually have more than one theme in one slides presentation. So when I created this new one, right, if I'm on this slide that I pulled in and I go to change the layout, or from here, I click to make a new slide, I have all of those different layouts, all those different masters. But if I go back to this first slide where it was just one of the predetermined themes, and from here I go to choose the layout or go to create a new slide, I have all of the options for masters from that slide deck. So you can actually pull in as many, copy and paste a slide in that has a different theme, and you can pull in as many different themes and master slide options as you can think of, really.
That's awesome. That really is awesome. And the other question was, so with virtual learning, a lot of schools are still fully virtual, or where I'm at, we're still a bit hybrid.
Yeah.
What's your experience with making activities like this successful with students that typically struggle with stuff like this?
Absolutely. So one thing that to me is really, really key, in Google Classroom, there's a place for directions. And I love to put directions there, but I also really like to put directions on the slides themselves. So you can see here, there's a spot for directions, and I put it in the margin on purpose. Because if you put it on the slide, then they have to delete it in order to do their work. So I like to put it in the margin. And sometimes people don't realize you can put something in the margin. You know, students are still going to see it. You can even put a video in the margin. So if I have students, you know, maybe down here, my students, they're going to use drag and drop. Maybe I have some that are really, really struggling, and I want to have a little instructional video for them. If I, you know, insert video, I can put that in the margin as well. So I can even have a video there for them. And then I love, you know, working back and forth and commenting back and forth with students. Mote is a great extension for being able to do that with voice. So students can actually just click a play button and hear the teacher's voice, as opposed to trying to read the comments, especially if you have students with accommodations or who might struggle with reading. So having clear directions in multiple places. I love directions in the margin. I love adding little videos in the margin, and then using Mote in order to have that commenting where students can just listen to what you have to say as well.
Oh my gosh, MaryEllen, thank you. That was awesome. I want a one-to-one tutorial with you at some point.
Anytime, let's do it.
All right, MaryEllen, I hope you enjoy the rest of your Saturday. Thank you again for joining us this morning, and I hope to get to work with you again real soon.
Absolutely. Good to see you, Lisa. Bye.
So as I mentioned, and I do honestly feel bad that MaryEllen had to stop so that I could talk, because I'm loving what she presented. So sorry, I'm just trying to get this to enter. So as I mentioned, Apps Events is doing a virtual summit every month. It's sponsored by Acer. And our next one that's coming up is going to be about Google Workspace for Education Plus, formerly Giuseppe or Enterprise version. So go ahead and join us. I put the link in the chat for you to register. And also, in April, Apps Events will be hosting I guess the topic hasn't been, bringing innovation to education. So, and of course, you know, feel free to join in your pajamas, but another Google Workspace presentation. So we're going to move forward to our final session of the day, and I'm going to drop in the chat here the bit.ly, but it's also, it didn't show up on the screen, but it's in the chat. So it's bit.ly/edtechwithlisa411. And I just wanted to talk to you for a little while about the different certifications that Google offers. And, you know, Google started with the certified teacher, now innovator, and now there are 5 certifications for educators. So we've got level 1, level 2, we've got the certified coach, trainer, and innovator. And I want to run through each of those 5 certifications for you quickly. Again, you can go to that bit.ly/edtechwithlisa411. And the deck is there for you. And you can also go to the link that's on the screen. So that edu.google.com/teacher center. The Teacher Center has some phenomenal courses, digital citizenship, some coding, everything you could possibly think of. All right. So level 1, for those of you that don't know, or for those of you that need a refresher, right? Level 1 is meant for folks that are looking to prove, you know, by taking the exam and passing the exam with a score of 80 or higher, their knowledge base of Google tools. And it's mostly the core suite. You can go through the Teacher Center. There are 13 units there, or you can go to a partner like Apps Events and take a boot camp with us. Our boot camps are 9 hours. We'll be launching some with US time zones pretty soon. And yes, Peggy, they're pretty googly, but they're also Apps Events colors. You can go at your own pace, though, in the Teacher Center. It'll take you about 12 hours to move through. It depends. If you already know the tool, you'll move through it very quickly. If it's, you know, you don't know what you don't don't know and you come across something you weren't familiar with or didn't have an occasion to use, it'll take you a little longer. The exam costs $10. If you go with a partner, they'll typically give you a voucher for free. And then you have up to 3 hours to take the exam. It's the first part of the exam is 25 multiple choice questions. I always recommend only give that an hour and then guess and mark them for review and go on to the scenario-based activities. Again, it's pretty much just about the tools for the level 1 exam. And here's what's going to get covered. It's a lot. So look at this list here. I'm not going to read it to you. Look at this list here and, think to yourself possibly, oh, Google Keep, I've really never used it. Well, you would want to be familiar with Google Keep before you took that exam. So that's a good reason to go through the Teacher Center or to take a boot camp with one of the partners. Notice on there, YouTube and Google Groups are on there, even though it's just the level 1. So it's outside of just the core suite of Drive and Classroom and everything like that. If you fail the exam, you can take it a couple weeks later. And then and then if you fail that, you can take it a month later. But you won't. All right, level 2. Level 2 is more about the pedagogy and less about the tools. So you need to know how to use the tools, but it's talking about, flipped learning and blended learning and hyperdocs and things like that. So it's more about how do you use these tools with students. Same thing in the Teacher Center. It's set up with 11 units. You can go through your own pace. It's going to take you the same 12 hours unless you're super familiar with all of the concepts and tools. This exam is $25. So it's a little bit more. Again, you go through a boot camp with a partner, they're going to give you the voucher most likely. Same thing, 1 to 3 hours, 25 multiple choice, and then scenario-based activities after that. Here's what you get covered on level 2. So it's going to go over all of those core applications, but it's also going to be looking at Earth and My Maps and Google Translate and Scholar and Science Journal. It's really like a little bit of everything. Jamboard's on that exam now. Blogger's still on that exam. So you need to know quite a bit about a lot. So, I always recommend just keeping in mind that you don't know what you don't know. Either you weren't aware of the tool or you just never had the occasion to use it. So always either, don't just launch in like Kim had said, way back in the beginning of the webinar, like I just sat down and took the exams, which is great. And I would totally recommend that, sometimes for level 1, if you feel like you're a proficient user, but level 2, you absolutely have to go through and see what's there. So before we go on to the trainer, actually, let's go back for a second. You're going to register for that exam a few days before you want to take it. They're going to send you temporary credentials. You don't take the exam in your Google account. And I always recommend signing up for the exam using your personal email address, just in case you switch districts, because that happens to a lot of people. And once you take that exam, you want to be able to access that account. So sign up for the exam with your personal account. That would be my advice. So you sit down, you have to have your webcam on. If you can hardwire, that's great. Otherwise, have really strong Wi-Fi. Camera has to be on the whole time. And you can get up during the exam. You need to use the restroom, get a cup of coffee, whatever it might be, let the dog out. Just make sure that when you come back, it's you that comes back to sit in front of that camera. All right. So certified trainer. Certified trainer, out of the other 3 certifications, this is the most attainable because Google's mission really is to have a certified trainer in every school in the world. And I think they might be getting there. There's thousands and thousands and thousands of us trainers. There is an exam that you need to take for the application. It's 7 units in the Teacher Center. It's going to take, maybe 8 hours for you to go through or less. It's a $15 exam fee, and you have 90 minutes to take this exam. It's multiple choice only. There are some exam questions on there, about the admin console, just kind of, levels of sharing and nothing too technical. But if you go through the Teacher Center, you'll see what types of questions they'll be asking. But for the trainer on that exam, you're going to be looking at, as I mentioned, setting up a domain, very simple, not too technical, delivering training, developing a trainer plan. Like this certification is for someone who provides professional development outside of their district, like at conferences like today, but also in their district to the staff that they work in. The application, well, you got to complete the trainer. Well, you can complete the trainer course. You don't have to, but the application asks you for the passing score of your skills assessment. So that's that 90-minute exam. You must have both level 1 and level 2. Now, when you submit level 1 and level 2 in your application, and it's not a Google form, you actually log in and create an account in a portal. And in that portal, you don't have to do your application all at one time. So as you obtain these different things, you can go ahead and upload them as you get them. Level 1 and level 2 is not the badge that you can find by going to Google Images. It's the actual PDF of the certificate that you earned from passing those exams. Okay, and then you've got a 3-minute video. That first minute of the video is your opportunity to boast about yourself with enthusiasm, be articulate, plan it, script it, or at least script it so that you have an idea of what you want to say before you hit record. And then the second and third minute are a tutorial. So you might use Screencastify or Screencast-O-Matic or the new Chrome screen recorder, right? If you have access to that yet. And then you edit that all together and submit that video. Make sure when you submit your materials to this portal that they're viewable by anyone with the link. Because if you submit, you put your video up in YouTube or Google Drive and you make it private, then your reviewers aren't going to be able to see it and you're automatically going to get denied and you'll have to resubmit. Then you need to list your 5 most recent Google trainings. These need to be Google trainings, not on third-party applications, but something, within it's not G Suite anymore, it's Google Workplace, but the Google Workplace suite of tools. You need to submit a case study. The case study talks about one training that you delivered. What was the resource that you shared? You have to share feedback about you, a link to a sheet. Maybe you gave them a Google form to fill out, and you have to reflect on what could have you done differently, what went well, what didn't go well, and you have to do some writing just about that one specific training. In order to maintain your trainer certification, you need to submit minimum 12 trainings a year to the Google EDU app, which I'm going to talk about in a little while, because you'll be listed in the EDU directory, which I'll show you a screenshot of in a moment. It's really important that if you apply to be a certified trainer, that you can ensure that you're going to be able to do 12 trainings a year. And that probably means going outside of your district and presenting at conferences, ed camps, things like this. Contact me if you're looking to present. I'm always looking for new qualified presenters. Certified coach, the newest of the Google certifications. This started out as a program with digital learning promise, and then Google kind of took it back under their wings, and Amanda is the program lead for this. She's phenomenal, as is May is the program lead for certified trainer. They're really great. So I actually just saw a question in the chat. It crossed my attention. Those one-to-one trainings are not professional development trainings for trainer. You'll actually have to list how many people are at that training. If you're doing a lot of one-to-one, then you want to apply to certified coach, because the certified coach program is designed for folks like me, actually, that I work one-on-one with teachers all throughout the day, every day. And you have to submit 100 hours of one-to-one coaching per year in the activity app. Now that might sound like a lot, but if you're in a position similar to I am in my high school, I did 25 hours just in January. Now February and March weren't as busy, but over the course of the 10 months of school, that's just 10 hours a month. And you probably do that with your eyes closed if you're a coach or a facilitator or something like that. There is a unit of study that you are required to go through in order to apply to be a certified coach. It's in an LMS and everything. It's not actually the teacher center. It's kind of off in a different type of environment. You can go at your own pace. There's quizzes as you go throughout. There's reflections. It's chock full of resources. And the whole certified coach program is based off of this, 5-step process. So first you identify what the issue is with the person that you're coaching. Then you investigate different ways that you can approach that issue. Then you select a strategy. Then you implement the strategy. And then you reflect on how that implementation went. And it's your role as an applicant to show that you use this 5-step process to work with the folks that you're coaching. And then as a certified coach, when you submit your 100 hours, and you typically do that once a month so that it's not like completely overwhelming, but that you show that, this was the stage of the process. This is the strategy that I chose to help this educator through it. And, ultimately reflect on how that went. There is no exam fee. The exam is free. You have to get, I think, a 70 or more. You will, don't worry about it. You have 45 minutes to take the exam, and I believe it's 45 multiple choice questions. What's covered? So as I said, it's that 5-step coaching model. The units of study that you're going to go through talk about team building and coaching and how to build relationships and what impactful coaching looks like and impactful use of technology. That's been really tough this last year because we were all in like panic, must make everything work mode. And it wasn't originally about impactful use of technology. It was about how am I going to reach my students in this remote environment, right? And then to develop your coaching toolkit, the things that you use, and even to collect your data and how you work with the teachers that you coach. The application. So for this application, you must complete the coach curriculum online. They'll have a record of it. So you have to do that. You have to pass that skills assessment. You must have both level 1 and level 2. And just like trainer, you have to upload that certificate into the application. You also must submit 3 artifacts. The first artifact is interactions with teachers. So like I kept running notes with one of the teachers that I was part of my original cohort. I kept running notes. I had met with them a total of 26 times in an 8-week cycle. So it's someone that you're working with on a regular basis, right? The next one is that data and analysis. You're going to collect some information in the beginning of deficits, also what that person's looking to learn and what the goals are for your building. So you're supposed to work with your administrators on this, maybe the goals is, to focus more on assessment. So that's what you're spending your time working on with that specific educator. And then a bright spot story. So share something great that happened with that specific teacher. I mean, that's a wonderful thing to do. And if you have the opportunity, you should be sharing those things all the time within your community. You're also going to submit a 3 to 5 minute video and a letter of reference from one of your administrators. So this really needs to have buy-in from the administrators that you report to or that you work with. And then again, you have to submit 100 hours a year of one-to-one coaching to maintain your certification. Certified innovator. The most competitive certification to get, because it's not a matter of just an application or an exam. There is no exam for certified innovator. Now, right now, they did a quick pivot, right? Because innovator academies were face-to-face, and you had to be accepted, and there were 35 educators accepted per academy. Thanks, Peggy. Per academy. But you had to pay your own way to get there. And then you got to hang out at Google and with your cohort and everything. Right now, everything's virtual. They don't know how long it's going to be virtual, but certainly for 2021, right? All right. So first you have to find an academy. Applications have to be open. It's not a rolling application. You apply per academy. And if you're not accepted to that academy, you can apply to the next academy that you're interested in. You need only level 2. Don't worry about level 1. Don't worry about being a trainer, a coach, any of that. Just level 2, a knowledge of the tools and the pedagogy. And then, and I think Natalia was talking about her innovator project at the beginning of the webinar, you need to identify a challenge to solve in education. All right. You'll need a 90-second video, demonstrate your online reach on Twitter, on Tumblr, on Blogger, whatever it might be. And you have to interview a teacher or student about what that challenge is. The benefits of all of these things, except for level 1 and level 2. So this is for, and you'll see in my little screenshot right there, you'll see this is you use the activity app for certified coach, trainer, and innovator. You get listed in the EDU directory. You get put into a non-disclosure agreement group. So you get to know about things that are being released on Google before they actually get released. You get opportunities to network within those 3 groups, whichever one or more you might belong to, opportunities to present at Google events or on behalf of Google. And this is just great for your resume, your LinkedIn, your social profiles. If I go ahead and I click on that, we'll go ahead. And if I click on that, like this is my EDU directory, it shows my badges, it shows, you know, my resources listed there and my areas of expertise. And the last thing that we want to talk about, and we made it. So we made it right on the dot. We've been going for 2 hours and 14 seconds. I don't see any other questions. I think I got the questions on from the chat about certifications. Thank you so much for joining me and Apps Events and Natalia and Kim and MaryEllen today. We really appreciated you, whether you're here live with us right now or you're watching this in the archive. You can find me on Twitter at edtechwithlisa, and also my website is edtechwithlisa.com. I've enjoyed talking with you all today, and I hope that you have a fantastic day. Thanks so much, everyone.